All right, so today we're going to be learning Module 2, Lesson 3, which is the main focus is how do you make a fraction into a decimal? And yes, there's grids galore, so have your highlighters handy. So how do we make a decimal, or excuse me, a fraction into a decimal? Well, when it's 83 over 100, that's a piece of cake. 100 tells me 2 decimal places, so I do 0.83. And when it's 5 over 10, another one, very easy. 10 means 1 decimal place, and there you go. So the key is, if we can make the denominator 10 or 100 or 1,000, then it's very easy to write the decimal. So how do we do that? It's kind of like when you're adding fractions and you try to make a common denominator. I say, does this go into 10? Oh yes, it does. So what do I have to multiply 5 by to make it 10? 2. So that means I must also multiply the numerator by the same thing. So what we're doing is making what's called equivalent fractions. So 3/5 is equivalent to 6/10. And you can see that if you were to simplify this fraction, which you don't want to do now because you're writing it as a decimal, if you divide both of these by 2 because they're even, you would get 3/5. So you can see they are equivalent. The rule is if you multiply both numerator and denominator by the same thing, or divide both numerator and denominator by the same thing, you will get equivalent fractions. So now we can very easily go, oh, tenths has 1 decimal place, so that's 0.6. Done. And now I can easily draw the picture that goes with that. So this is 6 in the tenths place, which means 6 strips. So here we go again. 6 strips. So 3/5 is equal to 6 strips from the unit. And remember, this box counts as 1 whole. So 6/10 is less than a whole. It's 6 of those strips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that represents 6/10, or the fraction 3/5. Because they're equivalent, we can say either one. Which region to shade? So 6, how about we write the number? 6/10 means 6 strips. Six out of 10. And that's why we read it 6/10. That means shade 6 out of 10. Okay, so basically if we can, we're writing equivalent fractions with the denominator of either 10, 100, 1,000, some multiple of 10. If we can't do that, for instance, if the denominator was 7, I can't turn that into 10, 100, or 1,000, then we have a different plan. But when you can turn it into one of those numbers, this is the easiest method, because the other method requires long division, and I don't think any of us are big fans of long division. So if I can do a little bit of multiplication and get my answer, boom. Okay, so this one doesn't go into 10, but 4 does go into 100. 25 times 4, 4/4 is $1. So I have to multiply 4 by 25 to get it turned into 100. That means I need to multiply 3 by 25, and 3/4 is 75. I always think of money when I'm doing 25. Just think of quarters. So this decimal is hundredths. That means it has 2 decimal places, and we put the 75 right there in those 2 decimal places. So this means 7 strips and 5 squares. Because 7 is in the hundreds place, 5 is in the, 7 is in the tens place, 5 is in the hundreds place. Or we could say 75 squares because it's 75 out of 100. Either way, perfect. So then we go over here and we do 7 strips and 5 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips. Nope, 7 strips. 6, 7, and 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. There is our very beautiful 7 strips and 5 squares, which represents 75 hundredths, but it also represents 3/4 of the picture is shaded. And you could have divided this picture into 4 equal pieces and shaded in 3 of those, right? Like it was a coordinate plane, and shaded this one, and this one, and left this one blank. That would have represented 3/4 as well. Okay, so let's see what you guys can do on these next 2. So go ahead and turn off your video and do the 2 on page 2, 11/20 and 3/25. Change them into a fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100 or 1,000. Shade your picture and then write down your strips and squares. Okay, and then turn the video back on and we will compare answers. Okay, so 20 goes into 100. 20 times 5 is 100. So that gives me 55, because I have to multiply by both numerator and denominator by the same number in order not to change the fraction's value. So times 5 times 5. So that would be 0.55, because hundreds means 2 decimal places. So this is going to be 5 strips and 5 squares. So 5 strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we have it. So everybody do okay on that one? Let's try this next one. Another denominator that goes into 100. Think quarters. 4 quarters are in $1, so that one goes into 100. So for this one to be 100, we would have to multiply both by 4. So whatever you do to the denominator of a fraction, you must always do the same thing to the numerator. So 25 times 4 is 100, 3 times 4 is 12. So there's our decimal, 0.12, because 100 says 2 decimal places. So 1 strip and 2 squares. One is in the tenths place, 2 is in the hundredths place. So 1 strip and 2 squares. I love colors, so this is kind of fun for me, even though I'm tired of coloring in grids. Okay. Everybody do okay on that one? Okay, moving on. We have some more, and I think we're going to run into one here that doesn't go into 10 or 100. It actually goes into 1,000, but I don't think the average student knows that. But we'll get to that one in a second. So if you want to do one more on your own, you can turn off the video and do this one, or you can just follow along. So this one, 5 goes into 10. Could I have put it in 100? Yeah, but I like smaller. Smaller's better when we're doing math. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. So that tells me 8 strips. Tenths place only has one decimal, so that would be 0.8. And this would be 8 strips. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the method we employ if our denominator goes into 10 or 100. And like I said, there are some that go into 1,000 too, but a lot of students wouldn't recognize that. Like this one, do you guys know that 8 goes into 1,000 125 times? No, the average person does not know that. So the easiest way to do these when you can see, nope, 8 doesn't go into 10. 12 times 8 is 96, so 8 doesn't go into 100, is we do long division. So when we do long division, this is read 1 divided by 8. So 8 must go on the outside. So I always tell students whatever number's in the denominator immediately goes on the outside of the long division. And then underneath I write 1.00 just to get the decimal started. So 8 into 1.00. Because isn't that the same thing as 1? But we know we need to change it to a decimal, so I usually start with 2, and then if I need to add more later, I will. But the most important part of this is knowing that the number in the denominator is always the number outside. So first thing you do when you're doing decimal division is bring your decimal place straight up. And then I start dividing. 8 goes into 1, 0 times. 8 goes into 10, 1 time. 1 times 8 is 8. Draw the line, change the sign. 10 minus 8 is 2, and then I bring down the 0. 8 goes into 22 times. 8 times 2 is 16, so above the last number I put a 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Draw the line, change the sign. 20 minus 16 is 4. Because it didn't end, I need to add another 0. So bring that 0 down. And now it is going to end because 8 goes into 40 evenly. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. So I can see my decimal is going to be 0.125. So that's going to be 1 is in the tenths place, 1 strip. 2 is in the hundredths place, so 2 squares. And then 5 rectangles. And think about thousandths place. It has 10 rectangles, so that means in the thousandths place do half of the thousands, because you're going to shade in 5 out of the 10. And you have to know this for the next part. And there are several of these on the test. I would say 3 or 4 of them. So very important that you know how to do the long division, and we practice more later in this section, so you'll get more practice, but that is a big one. So let's go ahead and do our shading. So it says 1 strip, 2 squares, and then 5 out of 10 on a thousandths means half of a box here. Right? Because remember how the thousands was taking one of these boxes and magnifying it? So 5 out of 10 would be half of the hundreds box. So that would be 1 strip, 2 squares, and then 5 out of 10 rectangles would be half of a box. And you can just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and show that there's 5 of those colored in and then 5 that are not. So that's what you do for thousands when it's not enlarged down here, is you just make a box and shade how many it says. So this is 5 out of 10, so half of the square. Okay, let's keep practicing. This one I remember is also on our test. Shade the value 44 hundredths in the grid below. So 44, and there should be a 0 there. 44 hundredths looks like this is a fraction, so let's get it ready. So that means shade 44 out of 100 boxes. Okay, so that's step 1, 44 out of 100. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 44 out of 100 boxes shaded. And now we need to state this in word form. And that's why I like to write it as a fraction, because how you read the fraction is how you write it in word form. This is read 44 hundredths. So 44, and did you guys know 40 doesn't have a U in it? 44 is hyphen because it's in between 21 and 99. So you write the number 44 and then you write the word 100 with a THS. 44 hundredths. Express it as a fraction. We already did that up here with a denominator of 100. 44 over 100. Then it says simplify. And this is great practice from what we did on our last lesson in lesson 2. So we said that anytime the number's even, start doing 2's. So both of these are even, so start with 2, and we would have 22 over 50. So 44 cut in half is 22, 100 cut in half is 50. But remember, don't stop unless nothing else goes into them. They're both even again. When they're both even, that means we pick 2 again. So divide by 2, divide by 2. So that's going to give me 22 divided by 2 is 11. And 50 cut in half is 25. And then I look at that and say, 11's prime. So the only numbers that go into 11 are 1 and 11. And 11 doesn't go into 25, so that is simplified. But you have to remember, keep simplifying till you can't simplify anymore, and make sure these two numbers are always the same, because you can't divide by 2 up here and 5 down here, for instance. They always have to be the same. Not bad, right? Okay, so shade 2 thousandths in the grid below. So this one does have a large one, so we can shade 2 of these. And does everybody agree nothing would be shaded in the big box? Because there's 0 tens and 0 hundreds and just 2 thousands. So to state 0.002 in word form, I think the simplify part got pushed over here, so we'll just write simplify here so we don't have to turn it over to do it. So simplify. So that's read 2, and if you want to write it as a fraction first to help you with the word name, 2 thousandths. So we spell the word 2, then we spell thousand with a THS. Thousand, THS. 2 thousandths. Write it as a fraction. Already did, because 3 decimal places, whoops, 3 decimal places tells me that it's over 1,000, 10, 100, 1,000. So 2 over 1,000. Again, we have 2 even numbers. So we simply start by dividing by 2. Divide by 2, and remember what I said, it always has to be the same number, both numerator and denominator. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1,000 cut in half is 500. And we know 1 can't be simplified any further, so there's our simplified fraction. 1 over 500. Okay, so that one was pretty fun and easy. So you guys want to do this last one over here on your own? Yes, we can hardly wait. So go ahead, and we already did this on the other page, so you can ignore that. So go ahead and shade the grid. Write the word in, or write the number in words. Write the decimal as a fraction, and then simplify the fraction. This one's going to be a little bit tougher to simplify. It's going to take a little bit more work, probably some long division. So go ahead and shut off your recording and come back when you're done. Okay, so this one has 3 strips, 3's in the tens place, 2 squares, 2's in the hundreds place, and 5 rectangles because 5 is in the thousands. So 3 strips, 2 squares, 5 rectangles. 3 strips, 2 is in the hundreds place, so 2 squares, and then 5 is in the thousands place, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see, is just half of the box. And I like to write it as a fraction before I write it in words because it's read just exactly like you would read the fraction. So this is 325 over 10, 100, 1,000. So to express that in word form, 325 thousandths. And 25 is between 21 and 99. So 325 gets a hyphen because it's between 21 and 99. And then we spell the word thousandths. Ooh, I'm kind of out of room here, aren't I? Thousand, and then add a THS. So 325 thousandths. Write it as a fraction over 1,000. We already did that. 325 over 1,000, and it gets put over 1,000 because it has 3 decimal places. Then simplify. So this is the hard step on this one, is the actual simplifying. So they're not both even. 3 doesn't go into 1,000 because 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 1, and 3 doesn't go into 1. But I do notice they both end in a 5 or a 0, which tells me 5 goes into both of them. So this one's going to take a little bit of long division. So 325 divided by 5. So 5 doesn't go into 3. 5 goes into 32 6 times because 5 times 6 is 30. Draw the line, change the sign. 2 minus 0 is 2. And then bring down your next number, 5. And 5 goes into 25 5 times. So that tells me the top number is going to be 65 over, and then 1,000 divided by 5. Now that one you can do in your head. So cover up 2 of the zeros. So 5 goes into 10 2 times, right? 5 times 2 is 10. Now add the 2 zeros. So 5 goes into 10 twice. Then add the 2 zeros I have covered up. So this is 200. But look at that. It ends in 5 and 0 again. So that means I have to divide by 5 again. So divide by 5, divide by 5. So then we go over here and we divide 65 by 5. 5 goes into 6 once. 1 times 5 is 5. Draw the line, change the sign. 6 minus 5 is 1. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. And remember, there's no calculators on your first 3 tests. So you should be practicing doing this long division. No calculators or you get a 0 on your test. So make sure you do this by hand and practice a lot before your test. So 65 divided by 5 is 13. Then we can take this shortcut again. This time, just cover up 1 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times, right? Everybody agree 20 divided by 5 is 4? And then add the 0 that you had covered up. So that's 40. And now we finally got a prime number, 13. So 13 doesn't go into 40, so that means 13 40ths it is. And there's our answer. I don't think we need to do these because we showed our work on those. How do we simplify 55 over 100? By dividing both by 5. How do we simplify 4 over 1,000? Dividing both by 2. So we have to find a, should we just write find a common factor to divide into both numerator and denominator? And it has to be the same number, remember. Find a common factor to divide into both the numerator and the denominator. And if we wanted to just show an example for this one, this is 2 decimals, so that means over 100. So both of these end in 5 and 0, which means we divide by 5. Because anything that ends in 5 and 0 is divisible by 5. 55 divided by 5 is 11. And then we can use our shortcut here. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then add a 0 for the number that the 0 that we covered up. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, add a 0. And 11's prime, so we know that we can't simplify that any further. And I guess we might as well simplify the last one and then we'll stop the video. So this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, so this would be 4 over 1,000. So I see that they are both even. Whenever they're both even, we pick 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 1,000 cut in half is 500. But oh no, they're both even again. So we have to divide by 2 again, because remember, you can't stop until the only common factor is 1, like on the above problem. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 500 cut in half is 250. And now we know it can't simplify anymore because of the 1. So that's good. That's a review of our simplifying that we did in the previous section. So that's a good review. Okay, that's a great stopping place. So let's stop there. And on the next video, we'll start on Module 2, Lesson 3, Student Page C. See you then.